All right. Welcome. I want to first thank Huddle for asking me to be a presenter this week, and also thank them for putting this on. There's been some great speakers Monday and Tuesday, and really appreciate them putting this together and finding the speakers they did. My name is Keith Riggs. I am the head football coach at Jenks High School. Have been the head coach for the last 3 years. Started here in 2003, so I was an assistant for a long time, and this has been my only coaching job. I left the business world in 2003 to get into coaching, and here I am today. So if you have any questions or you want to follow up on anything, my email is there on the screen. Feel free to send me an email. It'll be on the last slide as well when we get to it. We're talking about data today, making decisions based on data and an analytically driven process. And a little history lesson to start out. Some of you younger guys may not recognize these things. So prior to 2003, everything was done on paper, VHS tapes, cutting a VHS tape into playlists, smaller playlists was quite the challenge. But even before I got here, they used data. They made decisions off of data. They did the best they could with the tools they had, and this is what they were using. So 2003, we purchased DSV, Digital Sports Video, and it was really a game changer for us. It allowed us to enter data online, tie it to the actual video clip. I started here in 2003, but Coach Trimble, the head coach that was here prior, he had the vision and foresight to know this is where we needed to head. This was going to make a difference, and he had purchased this before I even got here. Fortunately for me, as a tech guy, I was in the business world. I was a technology consultant, and so this played right into my past experience, and was kind of where I was able to help out the most. Alex Kirby, who's another speaker this week, wrote a book, Breaking into Coaching with No Experience, and he has a section on film analysis, and I haven't read the book yet, but that was really me. My first year here, I was just trying to keep up with the X's and O's, all the things that come along with high school football. But I could break down film and I could search for tendencies, and I was used to dealing with data. And so this allowed me to maybe add more value than I otherwise would have been able to under different circumstances. We started out using DSV with VHS tapes. We eventually moved to the mini DVDs, which is the little small tape here, and then eventually to hard drives. And each of those was an improvement as we moved along, and which brings us to 2011 to the present, when we made the move to Huddle. And Huddle purchased DSV. We had the option to stay on DSV one more year. And I'll be honest, I was really leaning towards sticking with DSV. I was familiar with it. I knew the good points and the bad points. Really hesitant to switch, but we made the switch. So happy we did. So quick. We realized it was a good move. So many features we didn't have. One of the things that really stuck out to me right away, one of the downsides to DSV is if you were not a tech person, if you were not tech savvy, it was hard to use. And Huddle was not that way. It was very easy to use right from the start, even our coaches that were not very tech savvy. And so that was a big move for us, really paid off. We try each and every year to push Huddle to its limits and do everything we can to give us an advantage against our opponent. So just some initial thoughts related to data and data analysis. It really, and these are in no particular order, it allows you to quantify the tendencies. To me, saying somebody does something 85% of the time is much more meaningful than saying they do it almost all the time, nearly all the time. And even that can mean different things to different people, right? Nearly all the time to one person might mean 90% plus. It might mean 65% to someone else. So it allows us to quantify the tendencies. I think everybody has their tolerances, their risk tolerance, if you will. While one person might consider something a strong tendency at 70%, someone else may not consider it a strong tendency until maybe 80 or 85%. So having the data and be able to break it down and analyze it gives you those numbers, and you can do what you want to with them from that point. There's a cost benefit. I like the term value better, really. I think there's a huge value in entering the data we enter, but there's a cost associated. It's time up front to get it done. We enter a lot of data and it takes time. I do think you gain some of that back over the course of the week as you go back and look at film again, or there's a question and you need to go find a subset of data or a subset, and watch the film to make sure, that what you thought was happening was. Great example, one year, this was before I was the coordinator, our defensive coordinator did not draw the cards. This was before you were able to do them online, but we had an assistant coach that drew cards, and he drew up inside zone based on film he had watched. And we go out on Monday and run inside zone, and our defensive coordinator says, that's not how they block inside zone. And of course, the guy that draws cards says, yes, it is. I watched the video, right? So we were able to go inside after practice, pull up all inside zones, watch them. Well, as it turns out, we had 4 games on that particular opponent. One game, they blocked it differently to a 4-man front. Not sure why, but that allowed us the next day. We were able to quickly find those plays, look at the film and see how they blocked it, identify that they did it different one game. So we looked at it both ways for the rest of the week. So I think you get some of that cost of time back over the course of the week as you need to go back and watch film and look at the data. The data analysis, basing decisions on data, it is really a supplement to what you already do. It's another tool in our toolbox. It is not a replacement for anything. It's not a silver bullet. It's not going to fix everything, but it does allow you, I think, to make more informed decisions if you have it available to you. This, I think, is an important one, and we've had it here for a long time, and that's buy-in. Your coaches really need to get the most out of it. They've got to buy in to there being value in the data. A coach that doesn't believe that it adds value, they're going to enter the data they're supposed to enter, but all they're concerned with is finishing probably. So there's going to be a lot of data entry errors. Nothing more frustrating than, getting to Tuesday or Wednesday and realize there's a bunch of errors and your tendency numbers maybe change potentially significantly. So I do think it's important to have buy-in from your whole staff. And if your coaches believe in it, your players will as well, as you share these tendencies and this data with them. And we'll see an example of that, a few examples of that here in a few moments. Sample size, at some point it becomes really difficult to say something is a tendency if you don't have very much data. We typically will trade 3 games, and I think that's a decent sample size. Your first, week 1 opponent, maybe all you have is a scrimmage, last year's game. Certainly more difficult, not that you can't get something out of it, but it does become a little more challenging. A little more about tendencies. We all have tendencies. As coaches, we do. As husbands, fathers, in life in general, we have tendencies. And I don't think there's anything wrong with tendencies, even as a football coach. A lot of times, if you have a tendency to run a certain blitz, it's probably because it's successful for you. The tendencies that get you in trouble and the tendencies that I think we've been able to take advantage of over the years are accidental tendencies, tendencies you don't realize you have. If your tendency is intentional, if you know it's a tendency and you know why you do it, it allows you to react much quicker because your opponent is going to be looking at you and what you like to do the same way you're looking at them. So I think it's real important to understand your tendencies offensively and defensively, special teams as well. And it's certainly okay to have tendencies. Usually it means you're really good at something. But then also, you got to understand them. You got to be prepared for somebody to try to take them away. And even, we talked about, percentages on somebody doing something. A balanced tendency is still a tendency. It allows you to make decisions, hey, they're almost 50-50 on first down. I need to have calls on first down that are going to be able to be as good as possible versus the run and pass, as an example. I think there's a balance between the metrics, the data, and your intuition. I think there are times, I know for me, there are times when I've gone against the data, maybe late in the game, where it was just a gut feel versus what the data is telling me. But I think it's good to always start with the data. It helps you understand your opponent better and maybe even gives you better intuition on when you need to break from that. Some things we do in addition to breaking down our opponents, during the game, we have a junior high coach in the box doing a mini version of a breakdown during the game. We don't track all the data we track in Huddle, but we track several data points during the game. And the value, I think, in doing this is early on, we get to see if are they holding true to what we think their tendencies, we believe their tendencies to be. And then, if we're having success, at some point, they're going to start making adjustments. And so having that data to look at periodically, I think is valuable to know. Are there tendencies really there that we thought would be? And then when are they starting to get away from what they normally do? When do they start making adjustments? And what are those adjustments? So we can make adjustments as well. We also use this data to self-scout. We don't self-scout every week, but we do periodically, especially before a big game. We want to make sure that we don't have any of those accidental tendencies. The tendencies we know we have, and we know why we do it. And that's both offensive and defense. And we help each other, both staffs. We'll use a defensive guy to self-scout versus our offense, and vice versa when we do that. And there are a number of reports we use out of Huddle as well to help us in that area. And then finally, post-game, postseason analysis, additional data, about our games, how we did, how our players did, our player grades, how we give feedback to our players. We put all that into Huddle, so it's all right there. It's easy for the kids to see, and they can, even from home, they can watch the film. They can see the notes that we made on a particular play. And so we have some data points. I'm not going to talk about those, but we have some data points that we use for our team as well. These are the fields that we break down on a regular basis. This is week to week. We will use these fields. There are some other fields that we'll simply, we'll only use on a given week, and it could be only for, 1 or 2 games. The data for those fields is just not very often of value, so we don't do them unless we feel like we need to. The column on the left are fields that are populated by Huddle Assist. We use Huddle Assist to get game data into our opponent's film, our film as well. But those are the fields that they populate. The 2 columns on the right are the fields that we do on a regular basis. And then we use some additional fields as well on top of that. Custom reports. We use the Huddle reporting system probably more than anybody at the high school level, so I've been told. So we use, and there are some standard reports that Huddle has made. If you're not using any reports at all right now, I highly recommend going and looking at their standard reports that you can run and look at. There's some very valuable stuff in there, and that would be a great starting point if you're looking at to be more and more data driven. But custom reports, we build a number of custom reports. We use them really as saved tendencies. The custom reports that we have saved to rerun in the future, maybe it's something that we want to look at every week. And so when we get to a point and we run the reports, we run all of those, and then we can quickly go through and look at those and say, okay, here's a tendency right here off of this report, or here's something that looks interesting. Maybe I need to go research it a little deeper to see if there's something really there. I couldn't tell you how many reports we create. It's a 50 or 60, maybe, that's a guess, of the standard saved custom reports. And every report doesn't add value every week. But they are things that we would want to look at. It's a quick, easy way as a check to see if it's something we want to follow up on or something we want to use. And then down, over the course of the week, we'll create additional reports as we find things and want to report on it, and look at the data in a different way. Or maybe we decide we want to track a certain piece of data. We go in and enter it, and then we'll run a report on it tied with some other data to see what it gives us. Often these reports, I think I've already mentioned it, they're just a starting point. There may be something on it that is interesting, something we need to pay attention to, but that'll take us back into Huddle and we'll start doing some filtering and sorting and further analysis to get down to a point where we have something that we can base decisions off of on a Friday night. So at a really high level, our process, we're going to break down our opponent's film just as quick as we can so that we can begin to analyze it. If we have more than 3 games, we may not break them all down. We've started trading early because a number of our opponents use Huddle Assist. And so that part's already done. You trade a couple days early. It allows you to get a head start on the data entry and saves you some time. Maybe you get to go home a little bit earlier on Saturday, which is always a good thing, be with your family. After that, we build our standard playlists. And again, we have a number of those. I refer to them as data marts. Again, this takes me back to my tech days of data warehousing and data marts. It's a small subset of data that may be sorted or, a little bit differently from playlist to playlist, but it gives us a way to look at the data in a more concise manner and get to those tendencies that we're looking for. We'll begin some initial analysis. This is when we run all those reports so that we can evaluate those, watch more film. Maybe we notice something we need to dig deeper into, or we notice something that we need to go enter data for so that we can do some further analysis on it. We begin building our initial draft of our game plan and scouting report. And then those 3 things we just basically continue to repeat and refine until we've completed our game plan and scouting report. And that, by and large, all of that happens over the course of the weekend, starting Saturday morning, except for if we're able to break down a game a little bit early. All right, some examples of things that we look for. And again, we are a little on overload sometimes in looking for things, I think, but down and distance certainly is a big one. I think a long time ago, 10 years ago, a lot of down and distance tendencies. It's gotten harder. Offenses have gotten better at hiding their tendencies or staying balanced enough that they don't show up easily. Personnel is another big one. Who do they have on the field? Does their personality change? And how does it change when they change personnel? Formation and backfield, another one that's really valuable for us and is very telling. We'll see some examples of that here in a moment. Pass zone. This is something we use that a lot of weeks it's been extremely valuable. So pass zones are for us, and we use a custom field for this. Huddle has a pass zone field, and we do a little more than what that field will allow us to do. So we have 12 pass zones, and the field is broken up in thirds on the hashes. We have 3 zones behind the line of scrimmage, 3 zones, 1 to 5 yards, and that 5 yards is kind of iffy. A hitches example. If they throw a hitch at 6 yards, I'm probably going to consider it to be in the 1 to 5 yard zone because the route is a quick game, quick throw route. Then 5 to 15 yards and deep throws. But this can be very telling as to where on the field they like to throw. If you throw in what hash they're on, can the quarterback throw the deep ball across the field? Can he throw a fade to the wide side of the field and successfully, be successful at it? So that's been very valuable to us over the years. Pass protection, certainly, as a defensive coordinator, if you know what pass pro you're going to get, you're going to be great when you decide to blitz, right? So we break down pass protections and try to find any advantage we can to, get a free guy or, at a minimum, get one-on-one pass blocking so our best pass rushers have a great chance of getting to the quarterback. We do a lot of analysis on a specific player, especially if a team has an impact player, a Division I level football player, whether it's receiver, running back. When do they get the ball to him? If they move him around. Quick story. I'm going to run out of time, but quick story here on a specific player. And this goes back to 2003. We had started to use DSV and be able to find tendencies and take advantage of them. And so over the course of the year, everybody was buying into the value of finding these tendencies and taking advantage of them. So we're playing a team that has a future NFL player. He played for several years in the NFL, receiver, safety. They moved him all over the place on offense. So we broke down where he lined up because we wanted to know what they like to do based on where he lined up. And I go to our defense coordinator and tell him, you know what? When they put him as the X receiver over by himself away from trips, it's to rest him. They put him over there to rest him because they got to give him some rest somehow. He never come off the field. And we had, I think, it was a playoff game, so we had some more film than we normally do. So we had 6 games worth of data, and they never threw to him, not once. Now, if I told him that we hadn't been breaking down film and hadn't been gaining an advantage through those tendencies, he probably would have said I was crazy, probably would have completely ignored me and moved on. But I was able to quickly show him. We went to the head coach, whose eyes popped out when we told him that we were going to put our worst corner on him when he was over there. But sure enough, they lined him up over there a handful of times, and they never threw to him when he was all by himself at the X. So that was a huge advantage for us to not have to worry about him. Everybody we watched film on, what did they do? Well, they moved to safety over there to double him. So they were, our opponent was able to take advantage of that and either run the ball or throw the ball to the trip side. So there are at times, whether it's an impact player, all sorts of things you can gain from specific players and looking at tendencies based on that. 2-pass data analysis, I'm going to show you an example of that. This is where you kind of make a pass at the data, and then based on what you get back, you make another pass at the data. We use Excel to do this, and I'll show you one example of that here in just a moment. I don't think I mentioned it before, so let me mention it now. If you have a question, I'm going to try to save a little time at the end. If you have a question, put it in the chat, and we'll try to answer them online here. But if you don't get your question answered, please, by all means, send me an email, and I'll follow up with you. All right, I'm going to flip over here at this point. My examples really just weren't, they were too small in my presentation. So I've got PDFs so that I can make them a little bigger. You can see them. These are in chronological order. So this is 2011, which was our first year on Huddle. And this was part of our scouting report, and everything you see in here came from Huddle. This was built off of all the Huddle data. And I'm going to scroll down here because the key for this one, and again, this was 2011. And the highlighted items here are what I wanted to show you. Their quarterback, sophomore, great football player, wound up playing in college, was a starter in college. He was a sophomore when we played him. They had a really good football team, but and they were always in shotgun, but his feet were offset when he was going to throw the ball, 98%. So that means there were only 4 plays that he didn't do it. His feet were even when they were going to run the football. So 98%, I think everybody would agree that's a good tendency, right? So we knew what a great feeling when you know if it's going to be run or pass going into a game. And it held true, and we were able to take advantage of it, I think. Also, their tailback in their run game, 86% of all their runs, if the tailback was deep, it was a same side play. And if he was even, it was going to be inside zone or zone read. So again, some great tendencies for us to take advantage. I think probably that team was more talented than us. However, we were able to take advantage of these tendencies, and our kids knew what was coming by and large. Just another thought, these tendencies, especially something like this, it's so important that you rep them in practice. It's not enough to have it on a scouting report. It's not enough to just talk about it in meetings. You got to rep it. So our scout team quarterback, his feet were either offset on passes or even on runs every play during the week in our practices. We had on our cards exactly where we wanted the tailback to be. So our kids, and on Monday and a little bit Tuesday, we're talking about it with them, hey, look, where's the running back? What are you thinking here? So by Wednesday and Thursday, they're rattling it off. They know it before the ball's ever snapped. Similar report. This is 2012. Again, all this comes from Huddle. This is the way we typically do this report, is by personnel groupings. I'm going to come back to these in just a minute. So down here in the highlighted part again is the key. 93% of their passes in 10 personnel were on second and third down. They were 93% pass. Let me say it that way. And in 11 personnel on second and third down, they're 86% run. So this particular week, all of our scripts included down and distance. So they're thinking these things. And again, just like I mentioned on the previous one, you got to rep those things to have your kids ready. So 10 personnel, and again, this was a passing personnel group for them, 75% pass. However, of the 18 runs, 15 of them were on first down. So they got their runs in on first down. After that, they were throwing the ball if they were in 10 personnel. 11 personnel is the same thing, but flipped. It is a run personnel group for them, 81% run, but their passes, 7 out of 10 were on first down. So you get to second and third down, you know what they're going to do in 10 and 11 personnel. This is that same team, and you can see the heavy tendencies here based on the position of the back, but the bottom item, their motion. So when this team would motion, if they motion somebody into the tackle box, it was 100% run. And if they motioned somebody across the formation or from the tackle box out, it was 100% pass. So again, that was huge for us to know. 17 times in 3 games is not a lot of motion, but when they do motion, we know what to expect, run or pass. All right, this is a Huddle report, one of our custom reports. And this particular one is we're looking at players, and we enter player number as an example, who got the ball, who was the ball thrown to, who ran the ball, so on. And quite often you'll find some interesting information. Maybe they have a receiver that, when it comes to third down, they're throwing it to him because he's their best guy. They'll spread it around on first and second down, but third down, the ball's going to him. This particular one is what stands out. We'll get down to it here in a moment. Was their quarterback. Their quarterback was really good. Big physical kid, could throw the ball well, but ran the ball well as well. And he was number 12. So this is him right here. So you notice on 1st and 10 runs, he's third as far as who touches it. And pretty significant numbers below those 2 running backs. And again, second down, 2-1 on 2nd and 5-9, just about based with the starting running back. So what stood out here, and we were able to make, as a play caller, we were able to make some decisions. 3rd and 0-4 runs, it's going to go to him. Oh, I'm sorry. I think that's second. Let me get down. Here we go. 3rd and 0-4 runs. Now he's 65% of all runs on 3rd and 0-4. And when you dig a little deeper, you look at these 4 runs. 2 of those 4 runs were in a game that they were completely in control of the game. So really the percentage is even higher. 3rd and 0-4, the quarterback is going to run the football. And so, we based our calls early in that game to defend the quarterback run, and got some huge 3rd down stops early in the game. This was a playoff game. It was a team that beat us early in the year, and we were able to go on and win the game. They did, of course, they figured it out eventually and got away from it. But when they made adjustments, we made adjustments. So, but that was a huge advantage for us. Get down here where I can get to. So this is really more than anything just an example of what we use Huddle data for. And again, there are some interesting things that come out of this. All the data came from Huddle. This is a down and distance breakdown by personnel group. And I would use this on Friday nights just as kind of a reminder. As you work through the week, by Friday, you usually know all this already, but it's just kind of a security blanket, if you will, to remind you what they do and when. And so some things that stand out, as a first down, they're fairly balanced overall, but 21 personnel, they're going to run the football. So that's always good to know. 10 personnel, they're very balanced right here on 1st and 10, but all of the other categories, they're really very pass oriented. So again, as a play caller, knowing those things only help you make more informed decisions and I think better calls during the game. All right, this is another report off of the same opponent as the previous one, and this is a very busy report. It's hard to digest the first time you see it, probably. And this one we went a little more detailed than we normally would. But this is, let's go 1st and 10. This is everything they do 1st and 10, and it is summarized a little bit. The shading, you'll see they have a little different personality in their run game based on what personnel group they're in. So in 20 personnel, they're a big outside zone, inside zone power read team. In 21, they like to run jet quite a bit. 9 times they ran it, the jet sweep, only once out of 20. But then also 10 personnel, they're a big zone, inside zone team. So this just helps understand what they're wanting to do based on when they're on the field, who's on the field. Again, it also has, again, summarized what they like to do in the passing game. You'll notice they like a lot of quick throws. Their favorite thing on 1st and 10 is a now route, just a quick throw out there, basically a wide receiver screen. This little box here is the pass zones. And to save space, the bottom column is really a combination. So the 6 is zone 1 and the 12 is -1 or behind the line of scrimmage. So you'll notice they really like to throw the ball, wide receiver screens. Also, this is when they like to take their deep shots. If you look across all of it, they don't take deep shots very much. 3rd and 10, 3rd and 5 to 9. They like to take deep shots early. And so again, that's also good to know and just helps you make better decisions, I think. I'm getting close to running out of time, so I'm going to go, so sorry. Let me pull that back up. Not quite done there. I'm going to skip a couple of these just for time. I do want to talk about this one. And again, this is kind of hard to read. I had to cut it down to get where you could see what I wanted to point out. This is an example of a 2-pass report. So we export all of the data to Excel. We make a pass, 1st and 10 passes that are incomplete. And then a second pass, what did they do on the next down? And many teams will have a tendency to run the ball after they have an incomplete pass on 1st down. And this particular team was no different. 16 incomplete passes on 1st down. 10 of those, they ran the ball after the incomplete pass. But of the 6 that they threw the ball, 4 of them were on their last drive of the game, and they had to score to win. So obviously, their mentality is going to change when they've got to go down and score to win the game. So you can throw those out. So there's 2 that they actually threw the ball afterwards. The red is when they threw it, and both of them were wide receiver screens. So we knew if it was an incomplete 1st down pass, they were going to run the ball or throw a quick screen to one of the receivers. All right. Again, I am about out of time. Let me see if there's anything here I want to make sure. I do want to, one last one here, I think. We break down, if you notice, we have 3 backfield fields that we enter data for. and it gives us a different way of looking at it. So this is one of them. So for this particular opponent, near plus, the backs are together. Again, pro and low is 20 personnel. Near plus, they're together to the passing strength, and far minus, they're away from the passing strength. But what you see here is their tendency is really high running the football when their fullback and their running back are together when they're on the same side. And again, so often, especially two-back teams, the fullback is going to be really important in understanding what they want to do, where he's lined up, even how wide is he if they have him up closer to the line of scrimmage. Is he behind the guard? Is he behind the tackle? Is he outside the tackle? Will oftentimes tell you what they like to do. All right, by my count, I am out of time. I was hoping to have a little time to answer questions. I'll stay on until they kick me off. But if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to email me, and I'll be glad to help out, whether we do a Zoom call and talk more details or just an email reply. So thank you so much for your time and attention. I appreciate it. And again, thanks to Huddle for having me and for putting on this week-long coaches clinic. Thank you.